oppressed. Okay. Let's go. Has anybody heard of Ross Edgley? You heard of him?
Heard of him, but never actually listened.
Okay. Well, buckle up. There it sounds.
Around the entire UK. How many thousands of miles is that?
2,000 miles altogether.
2,000 miles of swimming.
Yeah. It seemed like a good idea at the time, and then halfway around I realised how big Great Britain was.
But you've done some long swims before, but not like nothing even remotely. Like, what's the longest swim you did before this?
Yeah, I did. This is a bit of a strange story. I tried to swim between St. Lucia and Martinique, two Caribbean islands. It's only 40 kilometres from point to point, and for charity I was trying to swim from point to point with a £100 tree attached to my trunks. So I was pulling the £100 tree, 6 foot waves crashing down, and I actually didn't make it from point to point. I was like 5 kilometres from the end. And when I didn't make it, I decided to swim back the other way. So I ended up swimming over 100 kilometres with a £100 tree. It took me 32 hours, but still didn't make it. So
what went wrong where you didn't make it?
Tides, currents, and
You just got swept away?
Yeah.
And especially attached to a tree, right?
Exactly.
How big was this tree?
So £100, but it floats, but it was more the drag.
Right.
So if there's any influence from tides or currents and it's pulling you in one direction, I was basically going to miss Martinique, so I was heading to Cuba, or somewhere like that, and then on the way back down, they turned to me again and they said, like, you're going to miss St. Lucia, you're going to end up in, I don't know, whatever's further south than St. Lucia. And I think I realised as physically fit as you are, the ocean just doesn't care. It just doesn't care. And so after that, this was last year, this was November last year, kind of felt I had unfinished business with the ocean. Came back to England, rung up friends of mine at the Royal Marines. I said, guys, look, this is going to sound so strange. I said, but I need to get it out of my system. I just need to see how far I can swim in 48 hours. So I swam 40 hours. I can't remember what it was in the end. I think it was 160 kilometres, something like that. And I finished. And I had basically trench foot, so where your feet and your hands are so kind of, I've got so much water in it, it's almost going mouldy, so I had trench foot, and I'm sort of sitting there nursing my feet, and one of the officers, a good friend of mine, and they came over, and they just said, they went, real English, Royal Marine, they said, you boy? And I said, yes, and they said, what are you training for? And I said, I'm training for potentially attempting the world's longest current neutral swim. And he just paused and he sipped his cup of tea and he looked me up and down and just goes, that just sounds a bit lame. I was like, okay, what do you want me to do? And he pauses and he says, you just need to man up. You need to man up and swim around Great Britain. And I was like,
whoa.
And I couldn't say no once the idea.
Should have said, why don't you swim with me, bitch? I'll do what you do, motherfucker. That's a crazy thing for somebody to be asking you to do.
No, I know, right? So I said fine. Once the idea stuck with me, we've got this real history and heritage of British eccentric explorers. And for me, growing up, there's a story of Captain Webb, so the first guy to swim across the English Channel. For those who don't know, English Channel, the tides they believed were too strong, the water was too cold. They said you just can't make it across the English Channel, it's impossible. But Captain Webb refused to listen, and 1875 August, crossed the English Channel, and this is the part I love, on a diet of beef broth and brandy in a woolen wetsuit. He swam, I think it was 23 hours, breaststroke, with his head out of the water, because, and I quote, front crawl was ungentlemanly like. And there was that element that I just thought, that's amazing.
Front crawl. What is the front crawl?
So basically that's front
the
crawl.
regular one.
Yeah, but way back in 1875 it was like, no, that's...
He thought it was ungentlemanly.
Yeah.
The movements themselves.
Yeah, it was still being developed as a technique, whereas, if you were a gentleman and you were a swimmer, you swim breaststroke,
Wow.
Exactly.
Head out of the water the whole time?
The whole way, 23 hours. And again, like the support boat was saying, get out, you're not going to make it, and he just refused. 23 hours, so that's part of a night swim as well. Head out the water just all the way.
Why brandy? Is he getting fucked up or just a little bit of brandy?
You know, I don't know, maybe. It might have been a bit of Dutch courage, but I think there was, you know, certainly back then, sports nutrition isn't what it is today.
Right.
So I think there was an element. He was even like looping himself up in goose fat. You know, this is way back.
Make himself slicker?
Slicker, and I think there was an element of warmth, or that was certainly the belief.
Right.
So it was
the Tour de France guys, didn't they drink wine? That was like a big thing back in the day?
Way back, yeah. I mean, it wasn't until long ago. Me and Jamie were just talking now about football back in England, and it wasn't until, you know, too long ago, I think maybe 100 years ago, they used to just keep brandy in the dressing room in case you needed to warm yourself up.
Really?
Before you went out. Yeah.
Wow, so
Yeah.
they would play soccer drunk.
Yeah, kind of just like a little bit, like I said, just warm yourself
Just a
up.
little bit of something.
Exactly.
Get the old engine turning over.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow.
And I think, you know, people don't understand that it's taken, you know, people like Captain Webb, maybe me to a smaller extent, to just raise the bar, push the boundaries, and you know, you've seen that. I think our generation have seen that with the UFC, with mixed martial arts, that has evolved so fast. I always remember Forrest Griffin used to kind of liken himself to the basketball players, just shooting three-pointers with the ball between the legs, you know, and that always resonated with me because I was like, yeah, the evolution that we've seen and what sort of Bruce Lee had the foresight to predict is amazing. And I think in a much smaller way, again, to go back to sort of British athletes and adventurers, Roger Bannister, you know, first guy to run a 4-minute mile.
Right.
You know, people say couldn't be done, and he was a medical student at the time. Leading physician said you can't do it, your lungs will explode, your legs will fall off, all sorts. But no, he said, you know, Oxford laced up his trainers and ran a 4-minute mile. Similar right now to what I think we're seeing with Kipchoge, you know,
Comes
the
back,
2 hour
they just
marathon.
haven't.
And so that's why, in a much smaller way, when I had that conversation about swimming around Great Britain, everybody said it can't be done. Yes, it's 2,000 miles, but there's giant whirlpools in Scotland called the Corrie of Ecken, Penland Firth, renowned around the world. If you get that wrong, you're disappearing backwards at 10 knots. There's no way you're swimming against that, and 10 knots, that's a dolphin speed.
Jesus.
Yeah. So
what is 10 knots in miles per hour?
Basically 10 miles per hour. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
10 miles per hour backwards as you're trying to go forwards.
Basically, yeah. Penland Firth, the top of Scotland, the currents that go across there.
So it's running at a good clip.
But yeah.
Backwards.
I mean, we got it good. We managed to basically predict it so well that I think that's probably my top speed, which I did 8.7 knots. So 8.7 miles per hour. I was basically cruising along the top, which is like a dolphin.
So you were having the waves behind you, pushing you almost.
And see, now that's what's interesting because I have the tides and currents with me, not necessarily the waves.
Yeah, I said it wrong.
And when you get, but actually you made a good point in terms of when you get wind over tide. So if you've got 10 knots going this way, but you've even got a little bit of wind and waves going this way, it can get choppy.
Okay.
And again, sort of looking at West Scotland, wind over tide, you can get 40 knots coming straight down the barrel, but you're trying to swim with the tide. And
whoa.
Yeah.
So the wind is coming at you, but the tide is going the opposite way.
And as you can imagine, that just...
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So how do you predict this tide that you have to get right?
Yeah, I mean, it's completely in theory, and this is what I realised when I sat down and we started sort of plotting the Great
What is
British
it called again? What is the issue that'll push you back?
Oh, just the tidal, yeah. So
what is it called? That area? That you say you got to get right?
Oh, so Penland Firth.
Pendon Firth?
The Penland Firth.
Pendland Firth.
Yeah, and that's that, like I said, renowned around the world. But equally, if you imagine the shape of Great Britain, there's all sorts of kind of compression where the water will just come rushing through. And as well as the Penland Firth, you can get 6 knots around Wales. There's an island called Skoma. And if you get that right, you are disappearing up, you're winning. You get it wrong, again, you're going backwards. And for me to do a continuous stage swim, if I'm going backwards, I've got to start where I was going backwards. So for me, getting every single tide right, and that's why I was so fun. The team were amazing. There was the captain, Matt, was just incredible. That every night the homework began.
Jim, are we okay here? No? Did we crash? All right, folks, if you're listening or watching, we had a little technical difficulty, so this is not streaming live. Will be uploaded later. We were just going over how you predicted your team had to predict how the tide was coming, because if it went wrong, you'd get pushed backwards at like 10 miles an hour.
Yeah, basically, and this is the thing. I think with the Great British Swim, we were kind of taking swimming as most people understand it, and we were removing it and putting it in an arena that was so different. So, and I think that's why it did so well kind of online as well. The community around it, because obviously swimmers were interested, but surfers started to get involved because they understood the waves. Sailors, fishermen, all sorts of people started to say, sometimes in Great Britain it's not safe to take a boat around the top of Scotland, for instance, never mind a swimmer. So that's why it was amazing that on the entire series it became a melting pot, an exchange of ideas, because nobody knew how to get a human body around the coast of Great Britain. It wasn't just about swimming, and that was what was really cool.
How do they know, like, when the tides are going one way or the other? How do they predict that?
Yeah, I mean, tides are so predictable. So in theory, they change every 6 hours. So in theory, when we sat down and we looked, we know that if you do 6 hours on, 6 hours off, for 157 days, you'll make it around the coast of Great Britain. And that was the theory. So you do this biphasic sleep, and you swim for 12 hours a day. But that's all theory. There's times when, as I mentioned, giant whirlpools or the tides might not necessarily, if you imagine sort of that's Great Britain there, the tides don't necessarily go always like this, so they're not that predictable. Sometimes if there's kind of like this, like that's kind of Wales there, the tides will do this, so you're
doing all these different things that people are not going to see.
Right.
If they're listening to it on audio, so just try to just describe it.
Right. So basically, rather than the tides just going up and down and working with you,
sometimes they cross.
Yeah. So you're just kind of getting slapped across the face by tides essentially, and it's not just helping you. You're going to basically zigzag all the way up the coast of Great Britain. So as predictable as tides are, we found there was so much stuff that when we were out there, we were like, oh, it wasn't meant to do that, or a giant whirlpool wasn't meant to be there, but it is, and that was what was, pretty sketchy at sometimes. That when we were out there, if a whirlpool just decides to appear, there's not really enough time to say, oh, hang on, that wasn't on the map. Can we look at that? Can we speak to the Met Office and talk about, weather reports? No, you either had to swim through it or try and get out there as quick as you could.
So when you encounter something like that and you get stuck, do you pull out of the water and try back again later at the same location?
You do, but quite often, if it was there, it's still going to be there.
Oh, it is what it is.
Yeah, so sometimes there's no option. And perhaps the best example of this, I mentioned it before, it's called the Corrie of Ecken, so sort of west coast of Scotland. And it's a giant whirlpool. And Matt, the captain, turned to me and said, look, Ross, I need you to swim, and I need you to swim hard. You need to swim 6 hours. You just need to be clear of this whirlpool. So as we were swimming past it, I set my watch. I swam hard for 6 hours, but about 3 hours in, I got stung by a jellyfish. And I've been stung by jellyfish a lot before. It's just, it's painful, but it was bearable. But this one particular jellyfish, it was searing into my skin. It wouldn't stop throbbing. And so I carried on swimming. 3 hours passed, and it was just unbearable. So I popped my head up and I looked at Matt, the captain from the boat. I said, Matt, I'm so sorry, I've been stung. I'm going to have to stop. I've been stung by a jellyfish, but the pain's just not going away. And as I said that to him, he looked down at me and he said, yeah, I know, because the tentacle's still wrapped around your face. So I'd basically been swimming for 3 hours.
With a jellyfish on your face.
Wearing a jellyfish.
Oh.
So it had wrapped into my goggles. So I took my goggles off, unpeeled this fat tentacle, threw it away. And then, like I said, I'll show you in a minute. But there was a picture where my face sort of changed shape, and the goggles wouldn't fit on my face anymore because my eye sockets were so swelled. But I knew that, again, for all of this happening, the Corrie of Ecken, the giant whirlpool, was still to my left. So Matt was like, you still need to swim, you still need to swim. So I ended up putting the goggles over my face, and to try and get them to seal, I just punched them into my face. So you just have these perfect rings, and then I managed to...
Because you were so swollen.
Yeah.
So you had to push them through the swelling.
Basically, yeah.
Oh my God.
So you swim, I made another hour, we got clear of the Corrie of Ecken, so we managed to clear this giant whirlpool. I collapsed onto the boat, and this is the thing, it was at that point that I collapsed, exhausted, face now a different shape to when I started that particular swim. And the team looked at me and they saw how bad I was, how beaten up I was. But they also knew that the sea just doesn't care, and in 6 hours the tide was going to change, and I'm going to have to do that all over again.
Wow.
And it was that kind of brutal lesson from nature that from a sports science background, I'm interested in, rehab, rest, recovery, nutrition strategies, all of this. But with swimming around Great Britain, it very quickly became apparent that the sea just doesn't care. It just doesn't care that you need to rehab your shoulders. It doesn't care that the ligaments and tendons in your shoulders are hurting. You might get impingement from swimming too much. None of this. And that's why it went from swimming, as I understood it, and how a lot of people understand it, to something completely like surviving, basically, in the water.
So your swimming schedule would be 6 hours on, and then you would try to rest. When would you eat?
During the swims or between?
During the swims?
Yeah, so quite often just, throwing bananas at me and just...
Wow. Salty bananas?
Basically, yeah, just salty bananas.
And you eat them while you're in the water?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because again, going back to what we were talking about with the pendulum first, you could get out and you could get on the boat, but sometimes, in a really good tide, if you are just in the water, you could be making 4 knots. You don't have to swim, but if you get in the freezing cold water of Scotland and you are quite happy getting hit in the face by tentacles, you can still make 4 knots. And so that's why so often it became about something different than swimming. It was just mental fortitude. It was physical fortitude. It was basically. I always remember actually first day of autumn. I got up. It was 2 o'clock, so it was a night swim. 2 o'clock in the morning, and I left my wetsuit out to dry, and I had to scrape just a thin layer of ice off the wetsuit before I could put it on. But if I didn't get in and I didn't scrape that wetsuit, then that would have been 15 miles potentially that we would have missed out on. And if you miss those 15 miles, the window of opportunity to swim around Great Britain, because of the British summer being notoriously unpredictable and quite short, we wouldn't have made it round, because even towards the end there was 2 storms, Storm Alum and Storm Ali and Callum, who kind of stopped us for those 2 days where we couldn't swim, because you just couldn't swim in a storm. It wasn't safe.
So when you were swimming, this was all during the summer?
Yeah, through the autumn, and then we finished November the 4th, which was going into the winter as well. And
you started what month?
June the 1st.
So since June, you've been swimming?
Yeah, basically.
God damn, man.
Anybody know who that guy was? No. Fair enough.
And I've lost 97 pounds with new.
Huh? Yeah, he lost 97 pounds. No, actually, Ross, the swimmer, gained weight during the swim because he non-stop ate, and then his shoulders got massive. Bless you. I'm sorry the doors were closed. He's clicking his way in here. I felt terrible. They were cleaning the hallway or something. So if you're catching on to what he did, and that is actually right after. That's like 10 days or whatever after he finished. This dude swam 2,000 miles around Great Britain for 157 days. The only days he didn't swim, I think, were 3 or 4 total days when there were storms. And he swam 12 hours a day, every single day. Yeah, sometimes at night because of when they were doing with the tides and all that good stuff. So had a team on the boat, had the captain. Obviously, you have to go alongside him, keep him safe, all that good stuff. And then they had a cook and stuff like that. He would have family come and go. He had a girlfriend. At one point, the girlfriend comes on like later in the swim, and he's like much bigger. The guy's like super yoked. He's only like 5'8", also. So he's not built like your typical Olympic swimmer. He's really short. His girlfriend comes on and puts his arms around him. And they're English, right? She's like, "Oh, you're so cuddly." And he's like, "It wasn't a nice thing to say at all," right? So didn't shave anything. Never set foot on land. Always stayed on the boat, even when they were in harbor. Some phenomenal experiences. So that interview was right after. So he wrote a book that came out a full, 18 months later or whatever, where he documents all of it. Why would I bring this up? Why would I show you guys that? Yeah, what about it?
It's one of the carrier readiness competencies.
Good. I'm glad somebody knows that. yeah, it's kind of where you guys are, right? I thought this might be useful. We talk about a lot of different things in this class, but everyone's ready to be done, right? Whether you're even graduating or not, or you have grad school or whatever, I think everybody's shot at the end of these 4 years, right? If nothing else, maybe taking off your uniform, put on a different one. Okay. So there's some great stories in the book if you want to. So all of it was documented too. You can watch videos on YouTube. Some of the water he swam through, they're thoroughfares for ships. They're shipping lanes. It's just brown, right? And it's just like, and his tongue was coming off from salt, all the salt water, that much exposure, like the layers of his tongue are peeling off. His wetsuit was new and like ripped into his neck, so they would put Vaseline around it and then duct tape around his neck to keep the salt water out of his open sores. Okay. But he never missed, he never got sick, and he never missed a day. And he never stopped swimming. And everyone's like, well, this is crazy. Like, crossing the English Channel, which is what he's talking about with Captain Webb, was like 23 miles, right? He swam 2,000 miles, which is insane. Right? It's not just about the physicality, to me. You can always do a little bit more. Right? And when we talk about physical or mental, you can always take on a little bit more. And I think we don't remember that all the time, or especially when things get hard. Right? We get tired, we get beat down from school, we don't want a PT, we get injured, whatever the situation may be. But you can always do a little bit more. Right? And sometimes you just have to push through it. You have to push through the injury and recover, or you have to deal with it. And realize, back sore, my knee's sore, my shoulder's bad, or whatever, and you still got to do it. It's no different in life. It's no different from jobs and relationships and all that good stuff. The other thing I like, it says the ocean doesn't care, right? I hate to tell you this, neither does the world, right? Hopefully you have friends or family or people that care about you, they'll care. But in the grand scheme of things, there isn't that care a lot of times. Shit happens all the time, right? Shit happens to us. And there's no one that's care or it shouldn't happen, but it's how you deal with it that matters. What else do we get out of that? What'd you think?
It's crazy.
Why? Why is it crazy? You're right, but why?
Because I could barely do like 1,000 of what he just did.
Yeah, if you're not a swimmer, it's brutal. Okay? Anybody wrestle? You wrestle, right? Okay. There's some brutal sports out there, right? They're all different. But if I put you in a pool, how would you do, John?
I swim, actually.
Did you swim too?
I mean, not well at all.
Tough guy. Different, right? Totally different sport?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Shit, I almost drowned before swimming in SOMS. I was doing like 100-meter breaststroke, and I got to the end of it, and I was like, you know what? I'm thinking about just stopping. I'm done with this.
Okay, and that's exactly the point, right? That I want you guys to carry with you. Don't fucking quit. Okay? Now, there's things you are going to give up. There's things you are going to stop, or you're going to quit, or you're going to change jobs, or whatever. It's like OCS. Every cadet I meet that's going to OCS, right? Especially Marine Corps. Don't give up. Right? Don't give up. Shit happens, and it sucks. But you can get through it. Right? You can push through it, and maybe it's not your thing. Maybe swimming isn't for you. Okay? But you can get through it. What else?
I didn't drown.
Huh?
I didn't drown.
Still here. That's a good thing. Yeah. Good. Taylor.
It's kind of crazy that he just like did it to see if he could do it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like really about anything.
Yeah. Just can I swim around Great Britain? And he actually did the PC version. I don't know if he listened to Rogan or not. In the book, the Royal Marine with their great British accent, he didn't say it's lame. He goes, "That's a bit shit, isn't it?" Right? Which is way more entertaining to me. But he was just going to do this open water swim. And the guy's like, well, that's dumb. Like, why don't you swim around the island? Like I said, all of it's documented. There's great, hilarious videos. His face is swollen up. He's all beat up. They show his neck. All these crazy things. For the jellyfish, they made up a mask. So they took like a neoprene, like full facial cover, and they cut holes in it. He looks ridiculous, right? But it worked. It was awesome. And he kept going. Connor.
Just, I guess, for some perspective, like an Ironman,
Mm-hmm.
it's supposed to be like a triathlon at 3 marathon-like lengths. So you
Yeah.
did the marathon at the end, you got the 120-ish mile or 210-mile bike, and then you have a 2.4-mile swim,
Uh-huh.
which is like a marathon length,
Yeah.
and he did 2,000.
Yeah, so he would do miles in a day. Miles. I mean, he would do 20-mile swims. Right? And again, he's 5'8". So he goes to a doctor to scan his body. I think it's more complex. Maybe any kinesics majors in here? There's a DEXA scan if you want to do it, where they'll scan your body and show you where the fat is, if you really want to know. It's a horribly depressing thing to go through. But it's interesting, and you usually know, right? But like dudes, we tend to carry it in our guts and stuff when you get old and overweight, so don't do that. But what you'll find out is like your body's not usually equal. Like one leg will be way more than the other by like a pound or two, or your arms aren't equal, right-handed, left-handed, all that good stuff. So they did his. He's got a giant, dense skull. So he's got this giant, heavy melon of a head, right? And they're like, this is terrible for swimming. And the doctor's like, he's like, because they're trying to figure out, are you going to make it? Is the body going to hold up? And he's like, you have this giant, dense head, right? And it's going to be hard to lift, and it's not aerodynamic, and blah, blah. And he goes, well, is there any good news? And he goes, actually, there is. You have really womanly hips. So he had he carried fat in his hips, which is good, actually, if you're a swimmer. And that would actually help him out, was that his hips were more built for swimming, even though he was super short. Right? So pretty interesting what he found into. But everybody told him he couldn't do it. Everybody said, you can't do this. Like, one, the logistics. Two, it's just too hard. You can't do it. And he did it, and he didn't miss a single day. And he never got sick, right? In freezing cold water, swimming around the north end of Scotland, and there's whirlpools and stuff. Forget it. And actually, when he was up there, there's a woman who did open water swimming, and she swam out to him with a freshly baked cake that she balanced on her head. And she timed it perfectly to bake. She knew about it. This was all broadcast, and it was obviously a big deal in Great Britain. And most people were like, oh, he's never going to make it. And after like 100 miles, they're like, meh, okay. And then he's like, swims up and around to Scotland. People are like, oh, okay, this dude's not stopping. So anyway, this woman like bakes a cake and swims out to it with him, and it was still warm when she got out to it, gave it to him on the boat. Yeah.
I saw this cool thing, I think it was yesterday. There's this group, they're crowdfunding a guy. I think what they're doing is they're trying to do the first ever Ironman in Antarctica.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah.
That,
You Texans are like, nope,
coming out soon.
not doing that. Say that again.
I think that they're going to release a documentary of that.
Okay. Yeah. And also, during it, not to spoil it, I highly recommend the book because there's a lot of good stuff in there. There's a lot of stuff in there about your mental capacity, right, and how you deal with things. But when he was about, I think, 60% done, found out his dad was diagnosed with cancer, right, and the outlook was not good. And his dad told him, he said, no matter what, don't stop the swim before he even knew, right? So he gets a call from the family, and he's like, our dad has cancer. And of course, he was like, why, I want to stop and come home. And they were like, just promise me you won't, family, and his dad included. Promise me you won't stop. Don't stop because of me, right? So here he does all this research and tries to, he calls it stoic sports science, and being able to deal with it and not quitting and dealing with adversity, and if you're sore and tired and all that good stuff. And he just goes out and he's just overswims. He swims like a maniac because he's dealing with all these personal thoughts and feelings. Well, he's got like 900 miles to go, right? And it's just completely unsustainable of what he was trying to do for like the 2 first days after he found out his dad was sick. Right? So shit's gonna happen to you that you don't want to happen. So how do you deal with it? Right? We can't just stop. We can't just give up. We can't throw things out the window. What else? Things you notice, interested, curious.
I wonder what's next for him.
Huh?
I wonder what's next for him.
Yeah, so that he did the swim in 2018, and I think he's done others. He trains actually quite a few actors. I think Liam Hemsworth trains and stuff like that. But apparently his girlfriend made him promise not to do anything for a year, where like he went off in some, because he goes off to other countries and does these crazy things on the book that he's done. But yeah, I don't know. Interesting.
It's not a big deal. Like, very.
What's that?
He didn't, like when he was talking about it, he wasn't making like seemed to make a super big deal about it. He kind of was laughing about it, not taking himself seriously.
He's like a typical polite Englishman, like throughout.
He does. When he was in the video, it looks different from what they painted him on the book.
Yeah, yeah. And again, you can see videos of him, right? And you can watch it in the swims and all that stuff to see what he went through. But the motivating thing for him was because it's like a sensory deprivation. If you're swimming in the middle of the ocean at night and it's completely dark out and you're out there for 6 hours, you are left alone with your thoughts, right? And it's cold and it sucks and there's jellyfish stinging you and you can't see. All you're left alone with is your own thoughts. And that's, Michael, you good? That's a challenging, scary thing, right? So he had to deal with that, and what he came up with was, I have to have a good enough, there's no good enough reason for me to quit that outweighs my motivation to keep going. So if we talk about knowing why you want to do things, or knowing what motivates you, or what makes you want to be a dentist, right? Okay, or what makes you want to be an engineer, or a physician, or whatever it is, or a Marine, you have to identify the thing that motivates you, right, more than anything that will make you quit. Right? What keeps you going when the shit hits the fan? Because we all have those moments. We all have those moments. I think I've referenced it during Hell Week for the Navy SEALs. They keep them awake for like 100 hours, and they feed the hell out of them because they don't want the body to break. It's the mind that breaks first. Right? And that's the only time, because they're almost done with years of training to be SEALs. It's the only time where if they quit, the instructors will let them think about it and come back. But if they quit once, the odds of them quitting again during Hell Week go up exponentially. If they quit once, they're almost guaranteed to quit again and drop out. So the body can take a lot. The body can always do more. It actually gets into it if you read it, and there's plenty of other stuff. If you remember 381 and the willpower instinct, your brain tries to cheat you out of stuff all the time. Your brain is like, it's hard, stop doing it, right? But it's just selfish. It's trying to protect your body. You can keep going. But you have to convince your own stupid brain it's incorrect, which is true. Right? You have to push past it. Were you ever in the middle, John, were you ever in the middle of a match, you're like, this isn't going well? Okay, and were you able to persevere and win?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's just really tough because like, you can be on the bottom and then you can have like some big sweaty dude on top of you.
Yeah.
And like you should, and
You're like, this isn't fun.
like mentally you're just like, I want to, like, I can't breathe, I'm done. Like,
I don't want to be here right now.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And what you do?
You just gotta push past it. And you realize that like he's trying to do the same thing to me, and then I'm trying to do the same thing to him. So I'm just gonna do it like better than he's gonna do it.
That's exactly right. Okay. No different than work or relationships. Okay. Believe it. Marriage. It's freaking hard. Okay. Because it's literally you're just butting heads sometimes, and you gotta adjust to that. Okay. Because a lot of times people just quit. This is not fun. I want out of here. Right. But we made a commitment, so you gotta work through it. Same thing with jobs. Okay? Sometimes it's just gonna suck, and you want to peace out. And sometimes you need to, right? But hopefully you can persevere and make it through. What else? What's up?
I'd say this guy actually really enjoys what he's doing, and that's a really big thing. Like, find something that you actually enjoy, like a hobby or a job. It makes it easier, especially when you're having setbacks, like you said, as
Yeah, and that, look, I work out 4 times a week, obviously. It's not fun. Okay, and I hate squats. I hate them. You have to do them. I have to do it, so I go out and do it. Okay, not because I want to have bigger legs or anything like that. And if you want to be stronger at anything, you should do squats. It's your largest muscle group, right? And most testosterone and all that good stuff. If you want bigger arms, I hate to tell you, you gotta do squats. Right? I do them because of the only thing I know about my workouts is they make my brain better. They make me feel better, not during a lot of the time, although sometimes it helps. But it is the best release. It's the only healthy release that I have during the day sometimes. If I go out and work out, okay, and I don't want to do it, right, but I put on some loud AC/DC, okay, and wake up my neighbors, right, I will feel genuinely better. Okay? I will sleep better. It's a refresh for me. I don't care if you guys want to be done with PT, and I would encourage you to keep doing it, okay, in your lives. Find what you like doing. But everybody needs a healthy outlet, right? Whether it's you journal to yourself or whatever, but find that healthy outlet. The only thing we really know about physical activity is it's good for your brain. Right? It is one of the single best things you can do for your mental health. So good point. What else? What did we notice? Huh? Yes.
Is there a reaction of the captain after he finished swimming?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff on YouTube, interviews. Like they document every step of the race. He eats a ton. He didn't count calories, but he gets into nutrition if you care at all. But like 10 to 15,000 calories a day. He loved cakes, just clobbered cakes, right? And so people would be like, the word would get out. Be like, he likes cakes. And when they'd come into port, people would bring him cakes, and he would be happy. And then he would perform better, okay? So get the cake, life is good, right? Tea and cake, truly English, right? But and this is true, if you enjoyed the cake with friends and family, you recovered faster and performed better. It's literally who you're with and your support system, right? So, yay, I get to have a cake. That's awesome. Cake is good, right? But if I get to have cake with somebody that I care about, it makes it better, and it actually has a physiological effect. That's why we love food and holidays. What else?
It's like the nice David Goggins.
Huh? This is exactly who he is. He's the super polite David Goggins. Yeah. If you don't know who Goggins is, he was a Navy SEAL, and he's done ultra marathons. I think he has the pull-up record, because consecutive pull-ups, it's hundreds, right? Like how many?
It's like most pull-ups in an hour or something.
Yeah, and then I think he did like a 24-hour thing.
24 hours. Yeah, but I think some guys, there's a guy that goes on Joe Rogan who hunts elk and like is like a nature workout guy. His son just beat Goggins.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You know what Goggins does during the summers? He fights fires, like forest fires, because he doesn't want to get stopped. And the dude's got money. But he's crazy. Okay? And he weighed 300 pounds.
Yeah.
When he talks about his stuff, it's very graphic. Like,
Super. He is polar opposite of this guy. He's F-bomb every other word, right? And just doesn't care. Okay, which is, I think he's great, but he's not for everyone for sure. Goggins doesn't hold back. This guy's like the most polite version of that ever. What else? We noticed. Thoughts, questions? You missed it, Kelly. We just had a guy who swam 2,000 miles around Great Britain. Huh? Oh, good. All right, cool. Well, that's what I showed.
One thing I thought was interesting, how it said like some motivation he used to keep going day after day was how it was beneficial to even just be in the water, even if you weren't moving, because the way the tides and waves work, how even just standing or like sitting still in the water, it could still like move you.
Yeah.
Instead of like 4 knots.
Yeah, and so to me, that's just showing up, right? Just be there. Just show up sometimes. Right? The other element, God, what was it? There's another element of that I think is important. Lost train of thought completely. Right past the station. Damn it. Forgot. Bless you. Good. What else?
I had one dude's rude comment completely changed what he was gonna do. Like,
What's that?
One
Oh,
dude's kind of like Rick Moment, just like I'm willing to change everything.
yeah. Yeah, and he's like, oh, okay, I'll try this. I'll shift gears and try this. Yeah. Again, welcome to life. Okay. People will say things. What else? What did we notice? Hayden, what did you get out of that? Anything?
That's pretty cool.
Good, okay. Anything else? Mason? You guys are the worst. Kelly, what did I tell you about it? I'm trying to remember.
You told me to swim around the island of Great Britain.
Oh, that's right. You think you could make it?
I would drown around.
Not one of your strengths, right?
No, unfortunately. But I do think like it goes to show like everybody says something's impossible until someone does it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it really just does take one person, despite I'm sure he got a lot of, oh, you're not gonna make it, you're not gonna make it.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing things like that really kind of puts into perspective what really is possible. So I think it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Connor?
You mentioned Kipchoge, and I think he probably has the same mindset as Kipchoge had. Like his initial attempt to break 2 hours in the marathon was 2:26. He was like, I just knocked off 2 minutes from the previous record. The next guy's gonna knock off another 2 minutes. I mean, it's just a matter of time. And
Yeah.
then he eventually was able to break it, but it's just you kind of said it as well. Like your body can do a lot of things, but it's just your mind being able to access that crazy level of physical ability. So maybe the next guy swims around the world. You never know.
Yeah, and in fact, there's a couple other, there's a woman, I think she was Swiss. She biked around the world for like 3 years, nonstop. Right, just everywhere, went on her bike all over the world, in snow, ice, didn't matter. Okay? And then another dude from Australia basically ran around the world. He ran for like 2 years. He just ran. It was like 26,000 miles. All right, and just met people along the way just to see if they could, right?
Another dude did it on a unicycle.
Huh?
Another dude did it on a unicycle.
Then that's like, why, right? Like, what are you doing? But it's awesome because people will tell you you can't, right? People will tell you you can't do it. I usually love it when they say that, right? And I'm like, watch, okay, see what I can do, right? Don't lose that attitude. Okay? People tell you you can't, you're like, screw you. Watch this. Don't forget that. What else?
But you have to be careful with that because you can get peer pressured into doing some dumb stuff.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. Don't do stupid shit that's gonna get you killed. But yeah, there's a lot that you can do. What else?
Makes someone watch Forrest Gump again.
The dude who did the running thing ran through that same stretch of road and like wore the beard and everything like that. He had this big long beard. It's pretty fun. Yeah. Hang in there. Okay. You're almost done. I know everybody wants out of here, not just class, but you know, you're 4 years in the Corps and all that good stuff. You're almost done. So hang in there. Some of you got a little bit more to go, and that's okay too. But just hang in there. You will be okay. There's a lot that you can do. Even when the world's piling on and shit's piling on, we can always do a little bit more, right? But have some sort of healthy outlet, right? Look, beers at the chicken, awesome. Too many beers at the chicken, DUI, not awesome. Okay, right, don't do that. Right? But have a healthy outlet somewhere in your life as well. For next week. Last class, please bring a device. You can use your phone, but it'll be much easier if you have a laptop or a tablet or something like that for something we're going to do. I am caught up on grading except for your worldview paper, so that will give you an indication as to where you stand. Okay, make sure you have your assignments in. If you haven't turned them in, please get them in as soon as possible. What we have next and final is phase 2 of your worldview paper. Okay. It's so hard to write about myself. It's not hard, but please give me thought and effort. Okay, you go through the second part, which is why we do it in 2 parts. This is essentially your final. Okay, but it's about you, and I hope it's helpful and cathartic and all this stuff to do. So please give it some thought. And consider the Pinker YouTube video that we watched regarding your outlook on what the world's like. Okay? And that is, you can find that on YouTube. There's one other thing. Make sure your deals are in. Monday is the dinner.
What's the press conference?
I don't know yet. I will let you guys know as soon as I know. Hopefully we'll know today or tomorrow. The rumor was business casual. If you don't have anything, you can wear your uniform, perfectly fine. I'm sure most of you don't want to. I don't think it'll be required, but I'm not certain yet since it's off campus.
Sent an email out about it.
Did they?
I think it is business casual.
Okay. I don't think I've seen an email, so unless it went out this morning. And then I have one more thing, but I'll turn this off.